Joe Rogan has heard hundreds of strange stories, but these go beyond anything science can explain. From mummified non-humans in Peru that defy anatomy, to a sitting U.S. congresswoman who says she's seen proof of interdimensional beings, to a physicist arguing that aliens might not be visitors at all, but part of the same simulation we're trapped inside. And even President Trump, when pressed on the JFK files and UFOs, admits there are things so sensitive you wouldn't want people to know. So what are we really uncovering here? Ancient fossils, higher consciousness, or the edges of another dimension? This is where politics, physics, and faith collide, and where the question changes from "are we alone?" to "what even is reality?" The three-fingered mummies that shook science. In a quiet studio, Joe Rogan leans forward, curious, skeptical, and fascinated. Across from him sits a geneticist who once studied the infamous Atacama mummy, a 6-inch body that some claimed was alien. But tonight, their conversation turns to something even stranger: the tridactyl mummies unearthed in Peru, mummified beings with 3 elongated fingers, skulls too smooth, eyes too large, and DNA that defies easy categorization. For years, they've haunted documentaries, clickbait headlines, and conspiracy circles. But this guest insists, beneath the circus, there may be a scientific mystery worth investigating. As Rogan listens, the geneticist lays out a chilling argument. The scans, the MRIs, even the fingerprints, might be authentic. Not extraterrestrial, but something ancient and possibly human.
My question about that mummy is not that it's an alien, but if it does register as human in the DNA, is it potentially a different kind of human than us?
Well, certainly we brought in an expert in South American indigenous people genetics, and the analysis showed that the standard genetic mutations that are found in different racial groups around the world matched exactly the Atacama region of Chile. So her parents, her relatives were clearly Chilean. So yeah, I mean that's really all you can say. If someone wants to say that she's an alien, well, that's fine. I'm convinced of what she is and that she deserves a proper burial.
And so it's just a genetic anomaly.
Just a genetic anomaly.
I do know that you've paid attention to the tridactyl mummies.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
So, I think people have conflated a lot of the different mummies that are out there, first of all. There's
a good point.
60 of them or something. And probably a fair number of them, I wouldn't necessarily call them hoaxes. I would say that they are constructed. But they're old constructs, so maybe there's some sort of homage paid to the ancestors or something like that, whatever they are. So there are some ones that you clearly look at, you go, oh, come on.
Right.
That never lived.
Then there's the fetal position
Then there's the fetal position ones, the big ones.
Yeah.
And I was at the beginning, I'm always open to being wrong. I was at the beginning thinking, oh, well, because of the small ones, those are probably not real. But then the MRIs started coming out.
Yeah.
The full body MRIs and the ligature and the bone construction and the finger, and then perhaps most, I think, extraordinarily, the fingerprints on them being clearly not human. So it's interesting. But here's the problem, is that because there's so much circus around them, unfortunately created by people who want a circus because it sells their TV shows, no scientist of any merit would go near it. So I was approached many times to study them. And I said, I'll do it on one condition. Here's the money I need, not personally, but here's the money I need to do the kinds of analysis to accomplish this right. Second, there will be no TV cameras. And you won't hear from me again until I'm ready to talk, because I'll have double-checked and triple-checked and quadruple-checked the results, and then I'll have gone out, as I do with the Atacama mummy, bringing in further contiguous circles of experts to double-check me.
And not make it a circus.
Because I won't name the TV show that wanted to do it. but they wanted to follow me around with a camera. And I'm like, no, this isn't how science is done.
Right.
I can't do it with those strictures. So I would say that if anybody's going to do it again, lock the things away with South American scientists. You don't need a North American scientist to come in and do it. There's plenty of smart people in South America who can do this properly. And respect the rights of the indigenous peoples who owned the sacred grounds within which these things were found. I think that's important. And then do the analysis right. You know, they made, I think, the mistake of saying, well, we've done the DNA and there's a lot of DNA that doesn't match. Anything, and the stuff is several hundred years old, anything that old, you won't get a lot of good DNA out of it. But they did the same thing with the Denisovan and the Neanderthal. You have to correct the chemical errors that occur over time. There are ways to what's called bioinformatically correct. You need to do what's called over-reading of the genome, where you do so many reads of it that you stack them all up line by line. Like if you had 1,000 versions of an ancient Bible, you would stack up the lines one by one, and finally you find one line that has this letter, that's correct, and then this one correct, and then you basically do a summation of an averaging of the correctness. And so they say, oh, well, there's 90% of the genome is non-human. It's probably garbage. It's probably these mistakes. It's probably bacterial contamination that you're reading. There's ways to deal with that, but that requires money and not one-off DNA sequences put on the interwebs for some amateur genomicist to make a claim about.
Right.
So there's ways to do it. I mean, you would want, at the end of the day, to get the results to the level where you could go to the guys who did the Denisovan and the Neanderthal DNA, the Max Planck and others who won the Nobel Prize for it, and say, hey, what do you think? But you don't dare take it to people like that until you've done your homework.
I see. Yeah.
Right. And you do it behind the scenes. You don't put them under a flashlight.
Right.
And people, I think, have gotten used to this click mentality of impatience where I want the result today. Why can't you just make it all transparent? Dump all the data on the web tomorrow. You're not transparent. You're hiding something. No, I'm not. I am just trying to make sure that you don't make the mistake and accuse me of making the mistake that you'll find in the data, because the raw data is never clean.
In the Daily Mail headline.
In the Daily Mail
it's
headline.
Never accurate.
So, long story short, I think there's still something worth looking at there.
Well, the scans are fascinating, right?
Yeah, the scans are the most interesting to me.
Have you seen the Jesse Michaels, the newest video?
Yeah, Jesse's a good friend.
He's great. I love that guy. And the episode that he did is fantastic. And when you see the scans and they go over the bone structure of the thing and you look at it, you're like, God, that looks real. Yeah. If that's a hoax from 1,700 years ago or
exactly,
whoever, if the carbon isotope dating that they did on it is accurate.
I've looked at that data. It looks good.
Okay. So then it is that old. Fuck you then.
Yeah.
Because there's no way someone back then could fake that.
And somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, could you have a single mutation or a set of... I said, no. I mean, because you don't get one mutation that does all that.
Right.
Evolution works step by step, that this does this, but it has a mistake, but it's corrected by this mutation over here in evolution, which is corrected by this. And so the genome fluctuates over time, compensating for the errors that would otherwise have killed you.
Also, one of them is pregnant.
That's fast. Yeah, I know.
Okay, so it's a 3-foot pregnant thing that doesn't look remotely human being.
Yeah. So the jury is still out.
Right.
But if they're going to do it right, they need to sequester the stuff away, bring in the right people with sufficient resources, and get rid of the cameras.
Have you talked to them? Have you encouraged this? Is it possible to nudge this in the right direction? And where's it at right now?
I wrote out on Twitter a full thing of what they needed to do. I mean, the easiest first milestone to do, to be honest, that could be done within a couple of months, is if it is somewhere in the hominid or, let's say, vertebrate line, there are metabolism genes that we all share. In fact, there are metabolism genes that we share with bacteria that are very similar. So do you know the technique called polymerase chain reaction, PCR?
Yes.
So, why try to do the whole genome? Why not just target a bunch of genes that we know evolve slowly, but do evolve, and PCR those out? Because that's easier to do than is trying to assemble a whole genome. And then by having just those, let's call it preliminary sets of evidence, you could then say, this actually reproducibly, if I take a sample from the finger, I take a sample from the bone marrow, I take a sample from here or there on the body, and I take a sample from the 3 different main things, and I see the same mutations, and they're different or somehow aligned with hominid evolution, right? We compare it to all the known hominids. I mean, that would be the kind of data that you could actually publish in a journal like Nature if you did it right. Because that's the only way that you're going to get anybody to pay attention.
There's also the bizarre anecdotal nature of some of the artwork. Like the fact that these people did a lot of these tapestries and a lot of ancient artwork that's 1,000 years old that depicts these 3-fingered things. So it's like, what are they describing? Are they describing these actual creatures? That there were only a few of them and it was a weird genetic mutation? Or is this a common visitor that they're describing?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean, why would you put them in a cave in Peru? I don't know.
And if you didn't put them in a cave in Peru, what would be left? That's the problem. The problem is it's really hard to make a fossil. It's really hard to find bones. Think about all the people that died.
Right.
And we don't find that many bones, relatively speaking, in comparison to the fucking billions of people that died.
Right.
It's not like we're tripping over human bones every day.
Right. Except in mass graves.
Yeah. Right. That's really And even in mass graves, given enough time, they will deteriorate. Mass graves from 1,000, 1,700 years ago, or whatever these things are.
So, I find them interesting, and I hope that behind the scenes there are people who are taking a more methodical approach to this, who I think should remain stealthed until they have the data to the point where it is publishable.
They can publish. Yeah.
Publishing a white paper or putting something out on the internet is not the same as putting out data that has all of the instruments that you used, the methods that you used, etc. The reason you want papers, frankly, when you publish them, to be almost boring and so thick with detail that no pseudo-skeptic would dare approach it because they're just not smart enough. But if you put out these snippets that don't have sufficient background, they can be picked apart by anybody. Right? But that's why peer review is so important. And people mistake peer review as trying to get the reviewers to agree with your conclusions. No, the main purpose of peer review is actually to make sure that the methods that you used are sufficiently detailed and are correct enough to the extent you came to any conclusions, they match the methods that you used.
And when you think about these potential, whatever they are, whatever these creatures are, if we did find out that they are some sort of a hominid, how much credence do you give to the theory that there's like the possibility that these UFOs, UAPs, whatever it is a break-off civilization from a very, very long time ago that's very different from us, just same way we're very different from chimpanzees, which we coexist with.
Right. I have no problem conjecturing that. Did you ever see the Netflix show Chimp Empire?
Yes.
Amazing, right?
Amazing.
20 million years of separation, and it looked like fucking faculty meeting. With people like looking at each other and planning and plotting, board meeting, and so we shared all of those interactions from 20 million years ago. So how much further back would you have to go to have something like what that is? I mean, it's clearly not recent.
And also, if you think about what we are in comparison to chimps, we're so fragile, we're frail, we're easily injured, well, if you think of something that's far more technologically advanced than us, it would be even more frail. It would be even more petite. It would have almost no muscle at all. It would look, weirdly enough, like the Greys from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Like, that's what it would look like. If it was a hominid that's whatever we are, and it went way past that.
Right. Yeah, no, technology gives evolution the excuse to no longer make or allow for you to be
robust.
Robust. Thank you. That was the word I'm looking for.
Why do you need opposable thumbs?
Yeah.
Right? These things don't even have opposable thumbs.
That was what's weird about it.
Right.
It's like, how do you interact with your environment? They look more like sloths than they do.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, at least their hands do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I find it...
Well, if everything's done with AI and automation and your interface is purely neurological, like so you have some sort of a human or a creature neuro interface with technology, and you just use fingers to like lay them on electronics so that you can sync up with it.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Why not?
Why are you picking things up, bro? You don't have to pick things up anymore. Those go away just like,
The Tridactyl mummies first emerged in 2017, reportedly discovered in the Nazca region of Peru, the same desert where ancient geoglyphs stretch for miles. Videos claimed they were non-human, but forensic scientists from the National University of San Marcos soon uncovered a darker truth. Many of these specimens were assembled from genuine human and animal remains, carefully molded with plaster and fabric. A grotesque reconstruction made to sell wonder, yet not all of them were equal. A handful, particularly one called Maria, showed internal bone structures, joints, and preserved organs that suggested real biological origin. CT scans even revealed what appeared to be a fetus inside one of the smaller bodies. So what's real here? The skeletal and tissue data from Maria do appear consistent with authentic mummification from the pre-Columbian era, but her unusual proportions, 3 fingers, elongated skull, altered rib count, are more likely the result of ancient ritual modification or post-mortem alteration. Similar modifications have been found in Peruvian mummy cultures, where skull elongation was a form of social or spiritual distinction. The geneticist in Rogan's studio explains how degraded DNA can easily create false signals, non-human sequences that are really just bacterial contamination or chemical decay. This is true. Ancient DNA often reads as nonsense until corrected through overreading, the process that confirmed the genomes of Neanderthals and Denisovans. Without such corrections, a genome can look 90% alien, but there's a deeper intrigue. Some local researchers believe these tridactyl forms might be ritual hybrids, symbolic reconstructions made centuries ago to honor beings seen in ancient art. Indeed, several pre-Columbian textiles show 3-fingered figures descending from the sky, carrying objects of light. Whether myth or memory, the resemblance is unsettling. And the most haunting possibility raised in the podcast, that these creatures might represent a lost branch of humanity, one that vanished long before recorded history, a breakaway civilization, as Rogan suggests, advanced yet fragile, retreating into myth. Science rejects that for now, but the mystery endures, resting in sealed labs in Peru, guarded against cameras and speculation. Perhaps one day, when the full DNA sequence is decoded, we'll finally know whether the 3-fingered mummies were fraud, faith, or forgotten evolution. She says she's seen proof of interdimensional beings. In the dimly lit studio, Joe Rogan sits across from Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, a combat veteran turned investigator. But tonight, she's not talking politics. She's talking about something that sounds straight out of science fiction. She claims she's seen classified evidence, photographs, testimonies, even reports locked inside secure government rooms that suggest intelligent life forms operating beyond the limits of our physics. Rogan pushes back. She stands firm. It's not just UFO-S anymore. It's interdimensional. It's historical. And if her words are true, it could rewrite the story of what humanity thinks it knows about reality itself.
When I was stationed at Portland Air National Guard, my job there was an airfield manager, so I would interface and work a lot with the F-15 pilots at the unit. And so There had been an airspace incursion that had taken place when I was still at the time at the Guard. And I remember kind of talking to some of the pilots about it, and I was like, what was that? And they're like, we can't really talk about it. And no one really wanted to address it. And so from what I'd gathered, that had been likely a UAP. And so that kind of was my perspective. Granted, I also grew up in the generation of the X-Files and, I don't know if you remember 94 Independence Day. So like, for me specifically, I didn't look at it with like a crazy lens and perspective. I'm like, you never know if, we're the only ones out there essentially.
But why did you assume that if it's a top secret incursion that he couldn't talk about, that it wasn't just a military craft from another country?
Because of the way that he was discussing it.
What did he say?
So he had been, he didn't want to, from what I gather, get taken off flight status. And he's like, I really can't discuss it. We couldn't really identify it essentially, and it had outperformed them. And so that was my first, from a military perspective, kind of experience with someone who basically, there's a stigma within the flight community. Do you want to lose your security clearance? Is there this level of crazy that people kind of brand that will stick with you and kind of ruin your career?
But doesn't he have instrumentation on his jet?
Well, at the time, right? So it's an older platform, but he really didn't want to even talk about it. And I bring that up because now with our investigation and the task force that I run, actually the reason why the task force was formed was because of an event that happened at Eglin Air Force Base where both myself, Representative Matt Gaetz, and Representative Tim Burchett actually had responded and gone to investigate multiple Air Force pilots that had come forward in regards to UAP incidences that had occurred, and they were alleging that the Air Force was covering it up.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was that, and I'm happy to go into detail on that one, but what I will tell you is the stuff that I saw at Eglin, how the military responded, me being, a former service member, and then ultimately what I saw with the pushback of the military not even wanting to share with Congress information, which is a big problem because when you have Congress that's supposed to be the advocate and voice for the American people, the oversight body, and you're being denied access, not just from a base commander, but high level up at the Pentagon, even Secretary of Defense, it's a problem.
Do you think that it's possible that these are U.S. vehicles that are top secret?
I definitely think that there's a level of advanced technology that the U.S. government has. And I think that tech can be housed within the defense contractor realm. And of course, some information is going to be classified. But I can also tell you, and this might sound crazy, but based on our investigations and stuff that we've seen, okay, there is definitely something that I think would rival what we know currently with physics, and a tech that potentially is out there that we don't have the ability to reproduce, because it would basically be like dropping a cell phone right off back during the time of maybe cavemans. So we just don't have the tech to develop it yet. What I can also tell you is based on our interviews, and this has been something that you can go back and watch with the congressional hearings, but I was actually able to ask some of the witnesses, what are these things? And they keep saying interdimensional, and then when you talk about the interdimensional aspect of, are these things pre-existing, maybe outside of what we currently know as our own dimension, that stuff can kind of all sound crazy, but at the end of the day, my job as an investigator is to receive all the information, decipher it, and then ultimately from a congressional aspect, if you do have contractors that are withholding information or operating outside of the purview of the federal government, there's budgetary issues, but there's definitely something that I can tell you with confidence that exists that we don't know how to explain currently.
So when you say that it operates outside our understanding of physics, what specifically are you saying? What happened?
To I guess break it down in simple terms is that I think that some of the tech that exists, that whatever these things have, these energy things have.
Energy things? What do you mean?
Well, they call them interdimensional beings. I think that they can actually operate through the time spaces that we currently have. And that's not something that I came up with on my own. That's based on stuff that we've seen. That's based on information that we've been told. And then also, too, I think that there's this historical aspect of, this gets into the deeper theories and concepts of religion and I think the history that we currently know, and that kind of spins off into another topic of, you have the modern day Bible, you have this aspect of Bibles or books of the Bible that have been removed that explain and kind of touch on these topics. And I think that we're in a time and age where you have such a vast amount of information that we have access to via social media, via your cell phone, via the internet. And so it's really changing the way that we understand, the origins of life and the spiritual reality that we know.
When you
currently.
say interdimensional beings, that they know that these are interdimensional beings, how do they know that?
Based on testimony, would be based on witnesses that have come forward. But what I can tell
So
you
the
is
witnesses just were told that they were interdimensional?
that they've seen things. And what I can tell you without getting into classified conversations is that there have been incidences that I believe where very credible people have reported that there have been movement outside of time and space.
That's very vague.
Yeah. So, look.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Look. Have I seen a portal open? No. Have I seen a spaceship? Personally, no. Have I seen evidence of this? Yes. Have I seen photo documentation of aircraft that I believe were not made by mankind? Yes. Is there historical significance to this? Yes. Is there multiple events that go back to, I would argue, maybe even before the time of Christ that have documented this in text? Yes. So do I believe that the government has access to certain technology? Yes, to an extent. And I believe that certain contractors potentially have back engineered this tech. I think that that's what can explain the advancements that we're seeing. But I also believe that this is a dangerous level of hidden information from the American people, because if you have an aspect of the federal government, which I can tell you, I, with 2 other members of Congress, were denied access to information at Eglin Air Force Base pertaining to whistleblowers because of the fact, and we can get into that story and what happened at Eglin in a second, but we were denied access and told that we don't have security clearance or the read-in authority on a special access program. That's a problem, because I'm supposed to represent and be an investigative body, and you have then people who are unelected that are operating basically in secrecy, and that's a problem. That's a big problem.
And so how do these people have the authority to do that?
I think it's been decades of classified secret information, then also this aspect of the intelligence community that's been empowered. And it's kind of serendipitous with timing, because when you talk about the intelligence communities and what they've done essentially to the trust in this country with the American people, I think this goes all the way back even into JFK, with how they basically have operated outside of the purview of Congress and basically to an extent have gone rogue up until recently. You're seeing a big push and pull to try to rein in these intelligence agencies currently.
Yeah, so what I want to bring it back to evidence. You said that you've seen evidence. Like, what kind of evidence have you seen?
I have seen photos. I have seen...
what have you seen photos of?
So I was in a skiff, and I can't discuss all that was in a skiff, but what I can tell you is based on the photos that I've seen, I'm very confident that there's things out there that have not been created by mankind.
It seems crazy that people have access to information that shows that there's something outside of us that is more intelligent, at least more capable than we are, and they hide it from everybody else.
What I can tell you is that when you have thousands upon thousands of people around the planet throughout time that have reported something.
Right.
To say that those people are crazy, to say that, the whole concept of even just asking the question that you might not necessarily be psychologically sound, that in itself, that's a disinformation campaign to get people to shut up about it. And that's a problem. We know that the U.S. government has not exactly been clean, and a lot of what they've done with the American people, specifically to the topic of UFOs.
Which makes you think that it's probably because there's something there. If you think about the motivation they had with Project Blue Book, when J. Allen Hynek was running Project Blue Book, this specific intention was to discredit all stories.
And he ended up ultimately, though, after all of his investigations, becoming someone that was like, I think there's something here. But that's true. By the way, a lot of people might not necessarily go onto Google and look up that information, but you can actually look up the declassified reports from Project Blue Book. What's also interesting, though, is when we're talking about tech, right? The ability for this tech, being that it exists, to change dependence for entire governments on things like fossil fuel, et cetera. It's look, I think everyone has a moral obligation to do what they think is right, okay? And so if you're in a position of power and you see something wrong and you're not addressing it, I think, this in itself, getting the truth out there for people to decide for themselves. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just telling you in our investigations and what we are pushing for in regards to transparency. I would like to see the federal government roll out some of the stuff that we've been given access to, because I think that information belongs in the hands of the American people. And it's not even just the U.S. government. I mean, there's other countries around the world that have done certain things like this. Now, look, I've had a lot of crazy people show up at my office and say, I've heard it all. Yeah, I've been to Mars. I have a chip in my brain, all this stuff.
They all have chips.
We had this one guy that showed up that was trying to give us a USB. He's like, put this in your computer. They're going to kill me for this, and runs away. And I'm like, I'm not putting that in my computer. But based on our investigations, what I will tell you is, there's been 2 members of Congress that are actually helping to lead out these investigations with me. And the reason I say that is because up until last Congress, if you even said the word UAP or UFO, people actually told us that if we went forward with these investigations that we were going to ruin our political careers. And so, we're in the mindset of, well, why wouldn't we ask these questions? And also, too, if no one wants to touch it, there has to be something here, right?
Right.
And so in these investigations, the amount of people that will come up to us, very successful people, to multiple members of Congress that believe the same thing, it's definitely changed in regards to the stigma that used to exist about disclosure and all this. And so what we're trying to do currently was, there's a big documentary that was filmed about 1.5 years ago, and we're trying to get a screening up on Capitol Hill. But look, I think a lot of people say, well, this is a distraction from everything else happening in the country right now. And all I'm simply trying to say is, it's not a distraction. The people that are kind of helping to divulge all this information, you have an intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard, Radcliffe, Kash Patel. They have been truly, in regards to our other investigations, extremely transparent and wanting to get this information out. But it doesn't mean that within these intelligence communities there isn't pushback. And so part of the reason why the task force was formed, pertaining to things like UAP, pertaining to things like the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, pertaining to things like the JFK, MLK, and RFK investigations, is because even though we don't hold declassification authority, what we're trying to do is push these agencies and be, if you will, the pit bull and the attack dog on trying to get this information released. And to a lot of these agencies' credits, they've been extremely transparent, and we have gotten wins specifically on the JFK stuff, and we're still looking to declassify and ask specifically on the UAP topic.
What would be the rationale for keeping a photograph of a known absolute not of this world craft from the American people or from the world? Why would anybody think that would be the smart thing to do, is to limit the access of that information to a very small amount of people?
I think that part of the fear is that you have advisors that think that, the American people or humanity might not be able to handle it. There's this protective complex, but then also too, I think when you are talking about these things, for a lot of people, I think that it kind of can rock your world a little bit in regards to where you stand in a faith perspective, and then also too, an aspect of, well, how do you even begin to explain it? And all I'm going to say is, look, and we can go into some of the books that were removed from what we know as the modern day Bible, but I read through the book of Enoch multiple times, and I'm not saying that these things are angels, okay? That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that depending on where you are in regards to your whole perspective on whether or not God exists, I believe in God, I'm a Christian. There has to have been, and there's admissions that there was other creations that God made, but that we were the most prized creation. And so I think that this can open up a bigger topic of discussion.
What Luna describes is part of a growing narrative within the U.S. government, one that's moved from whispers to congressional hearings. Officially, the Pentagon calls them UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. Behind closed doors, some lawmakers believe they represent a technology not of this earth. But Luna's claim that some of these entities could be interdimensional beings goes beyond anything confirmed by physics or classified files. The idea of interdimensional life comes from theoretical models like string theory and brain cosmology, where multiple universes exist parallel to ours. These models allow for dimensions beyond the 3 we experience, but there's no empirical evidence that any form of life has crossed between them. Still, her story carries the weight of something deeper: secrecy and control. She recounts being denied access to classified programs, even as a member of Congress. That's not impossible. America's special access programs are notorious for shielding advanced military technology. sometimes even from elected oversight. The same shadow system once protected stealth aircraft and drone projects long before they were public. Could the interdimensional label be a misinterpretation, a poetic way of describing movements or energy signatures that seem impossible under known physics? Possibly. Many radar anomalies have turned out to be atmospheric reflections, sensor artifacts, or electromagnetic distortions. Yet, there remain cases, like the 2004 Nimitz encounter, where military pilots and instruments tracked objects that defied conventional aerodynamics. Luna's faith-driven lens adds another layer. She references the Book of Enoch, an ancient Hebrew text excluded from the modern Bible, a book describing divine beings who descended from the sky to interact with humans. Throughout history, similar accounts appear across cultures. The Dogon tribe star visitors, the Sumerian Anunnaki, the Mayan sky gods. These myths may not be literal, but they reveal something timeless, humanity's instinct to frame the unknown as sacred. The danger, however, lies in turning mystery into certainty. Without verifiable data, without open analysis, the conversation drifts toward belief instead of discovery. Yet Luna's larger point still stands: transparency. If advanced technology exists, whether human or otherwise, it belongs to the public record, not buried behind layers of secrecy and fear. Because the real story here may not be aliens at all, it may be how long truth can hide in plain sight. Trump hints at secrets behind JFK and UFO files. Joe Rogan leans across the table, his tone careful but curious. He's speaking with former U.S. President Donald Trump, a man who once held the keys to every classified vault in America. The question is simple: why haven't the full JFK assassination files been released? Trump pauses. He says he wanted to open them, but good people, intelligence officials, even his own Secretary of State, told him not to. And then, almost casually, he pivots from JFK to UFOs. He says he's spoken to pilots who saw things that defy physics, perfect men, trained aviators, not conspiracy theorists. They told him, "Sir, there's something out there." And, for the first time, Trump admits he's seen evidence he can't explain.
One of the things that I want to talk to you about is the JFK files. And one of the things that you said was that if they showed you what they showed me, this was your quote, you wouldn't want people to know it either.
So I opened them up partially. I was met with, from good people, good people. People that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them. He's a good person. They called me, they said, "Sir, would rather have you not." And I did open them, but I was asked by some people not to open them. There's a Martin Luther King file, too, by the way, that they'd like to see. I don't know if you know, but there is that. But JFK in particular. So they called me, a lot of good people called me, people that that you would find reasonable people, and they asked me not to do it. So I said, well, we'll close it for another time. But if I win, I'm going to open them up. I'm just going to open enough time.
Why didn't you open it up the first time, though?
Because a lot of times,
what was the hesitation, though?
Addresses, people that are still living. There are people that are affected. And there could be some national security reason that that I don't have to necessarily know about. But some very good, talented people asked me not to do it. I opened it up, and then they said, would it be possible for us to do that a different day?
How much of it did you read into?
I think it's going to be just fine to open it. Let me put it that way. I think it's fine. It's going to be time. It's a cleansing, it's really a cleansing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it immediately, almost immediately upon entering office.
Well, the thing, when people look at it from the outside and you sort of imagine what could be a reason why they would not release those files, it would be there's people that were implicated in the assassination.
Yeah. Well, when there are living people, you generally tend not to want to do it. When people are still living
people that formerly worked for the government.
And living people that were somehow involved in it, and you tend not to do that. But it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open. I think I've opened 50%, but I was asked not to do it, and I thought that was a reasonable ask. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it very soon. There's a lot of interest in it.
One of the things that
There's
I'm
a lot of interest in the people coming from space,
Yes.
And I know you're interested in that.
Oh, I'm very
too.
interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd they tell you? How much can you tell?
So
How's that work? Is it like super
I think
top
I
secret?
Can tell,
Tell me.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell I want, right? But no. But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is, I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51 in Las Vegas. Do you know that, right?
Sure, I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as your
I've had a
son.
couple in here. Commander David Fravor.
Yeah.
I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very, very compelling with video
compelling.
evidence, radar evidence.
I interviewed
Ryan Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, And it was round, which is, in theory, a great shape.
So when you were talking to these people, was this something that you were compelled to have conversations about? Was this your personal interest?
A little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, because
Mars, we've had probes there and rovers, and I don't think there's any life there.
Well, maybe it's life that we don't know, but maybe
there was life there at one point in time. This is the speculation about Mars, that Mars had an atmosphere at one point in time, a long time ago, that could support life. It also had large bodies of water, but we've had no evidence of even bacterial life that exists on Mars. But the universe is pretty vast. It's not been a big thing
for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up, and a lot of people thought for a little while that was one of these things. So,
that's a lot of the speculation too, that some of these drones that hover over battleships, that these are Chinese drones, and that they're not UFOs.
They could be also.
There's some super sophisticated.
But I did interview, let's say 3 or 4 guys that, and without tremendous interest, if you had them. As I said, you'd love to have them as your children. Solid, beautiful people. They said, sir, there's something there.
There's something there.
Said it, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few of
them.
them.
They're not conspiracy guys.
Well, I mean, just the Commander David Fravor thing in 2004 off the coast of San Diego, they clocked that thing going from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in a second.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is.
That's tough to beat.
Yeah, they saw something in the water. It was hovering over that something that was making a disturbance in the water. They got video evidence of this thing. 2 different fighter jets with pilots in them saw it. There's, visual evidence, photographic evidence, video evidence, radar evidence. Whatever the hell it is, it moves in a way that would turn a human being into jello if they were inside of it. The G-force, no one would survive.
Oh,
so what is that? And it doesn't have a heat signature. They don't know what their propulsion system was. But
when you fly in some of these jets, these pilots have to be in great shape.
Oh yeah, I flew with the Blue Angels once.
Yeah,
I got to fly. I guess
and
it's
those
an
are
FA-18.
and those are older machines.
And they're crazy.
When you fly in some of these things,
oh my
it's
God,
amazing. Yeah, but
I can imagine.
You got to be special.
When Donald Trump says, "If you saw what they showed me, you wouldn't want people to know either," he taps directly into America's oldest wound, the belief that power hides the truth. The JFK assassination files have been the epicenter of that mistrust for 60 years. More than 15,000 pages remain partially or fully redacted. Officially, the CIA and FBI cite national security, protecting sources and methods, and in some cases, people still alive. But historians argue that the withheld material likely reveals covert Cold War operations, not a second gunman. The secrecy, however, keeps the doubt alive. Trump's statement that he was personally urged by advisors like Mike Pompeo not to release the full record fits a familiar pattern in American intelligence history: the public story, the hidden file, and the space between. Then comes the turn from Dallas to the desert sky. Trump says he interviewed Navy pilots who saw perfectly round craft moving faster than any jet on Earth. One of them, Commander David Fravor, is real, a decorated pilot who witnessed the 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac encounter, a case verified by radar, infrared video, and multiple eyewitnesses. Fravor's account is one of the strongest pieces of evidence in the modern UAP debate. The object he described dropped from 50,000 feet to sea level in under a second, a maneuver impossible under known aerodynamics. And unlike older UFO tales, this one came from U.S. Navy instruments, not blurry home footage. Trump's tone in the clip is half dismissive, half fascinated, the hallmark of a man aware of something he can't control. He admits the subject isn't his obsession, yet he repeats, "They saw something." That line carries weight because for decades, every administration, from Eisenhower to Obama, has wrestled with the same invisible question: what if there's more out there than we've been told? Most evidence points toward human technology, black projects, drone tests, foreign surveillance craft, but the persistence of credible witnesses and unexplained flight behavior keeps the door slightly open. And so, the two greatest mysteries in American secrecy, the death of a president and the sky above the Pacific, now share a single thread. Layers of truth wrapped in just enough silence to keep the world guessing. Whether those silences hide conspiracy or simply fear of chaos, one thing is certain: every time the curtain is pulled back, even slightly, it reveals not just what the government knows, but how deeply it believes we can't handle knowing it. The physicist who says we live in a conscious simulation. Under the dim lights of Joe Rogan's studio, physicist Thomas Campbell lays out an idea that sounds more like philosophy than science. Yet he speaks with the calm certainty of a man describing gravity. He claims our universe is not physical at all. It's a virtual reality rendered by a vast field of consciousness. The stars, the planets, even the atoms, computed only when observed, like pixels in a cosmic video game. And if that's true, Campbell says, then the question of alien life changes completely, because in a virtual universe, reality itself might only exist when someone is looking.
Now we've gotten far enough that it's easier for me to talk about these things. All right, my model says this is a virtual reality computed by consciousness, right? And we're a piece of consciousness. Now, given that, the big thing that is in favor of aliens existing, let's just talk about aliens existing, is that there's trillions of suns out there, and there are bound to be some of them that are sort of like this, because why would this be one unique thing, right, and all of that stuff? And if it happened here, then it's going to happen someplace else. You know, the probability is such. All right, but now look at my model's view of that. That big universe is a virtual. It's just computed. If it's just computed, when we look out at all those little stars that are just little dots of light, that's what's being computed to us. It's a dot of light, nothing more. It's just, we look out there, we look away, we go to sleep. We're not getting that data anymore. It's gone. It's just like, No Man's Sky started this idea that you only compute what a player's looking at.
Right.
Well, that's the way it works. That's efficient, much more efficient. So then I compute what somebody's looking at. When I look up there at the sky, I'll see all these little dots of light. When I close my eyes, it's not in my data stream anymore. All right. So the next question is, how many seats does this larger consciousness system need in this entropy reduction simulator? Okay. Now we reduce our entropy by the quality of the choices we make. Okay. Now, how many seats does it need? Well, you figure if there's more seats, then there's more people who are reducing their entropy, and the system is growing. And more seats, but every seat costs a price. The system has to put a data line to that and has to calculate all those interactions and how they affect other people and so on. So there's a price. Now, at some point, like all systems, this is true of all self-changing systems, is that there's a sweet point. Okay, I add another player, better. Add another player, better. Add another player, not much better. Add another player, just a teeny bit better. Add another player, more expensive. So it's the gain to cost. Somewhere, as you scale systems up, you'll get a cost to You know, how much does it cost, and how much do you have to how much you get out of it? What's the value? So eventually, we got 9 billion people here. Well, if I add another person, is that going to help the larger conscious system evolve any more quickly? Probably not. There's a billion of us. So what does that then imply? If that's the case, then this is it. Earth. We are the only people. Because then you say, oh, what a waste. It's no waste. Those are just bits. A single bit that tells you how bright it is and where it's located. 4 bits. 3 positions, 1 of intensity, and that's it. Maybe a couple other for the Doppler effect, and it's moving and it's accelerating and so on, but that's all you get. It's not there, and when daylight comes, it doesn't have to compute any of it. When a guy gets out his telescope, it has to compute what he sees. Random draw, that's what he sees. Good. Stop doing it. Turned off his telescope, nobody's looking at that anymore. Then you don't have to compute it anymore. So it's not a big waste of anything. It's a virtual reality. It only computes what's functional.
Okay.
And it only needs so many seats. Now, if you had another planet someplace in this the whole universe is its game. The game is the universe, not just our solar system. If you wanted another planet, and it also had 9 billion people, and another one, and it had 9 billion people like us, now you've got 27 billion people. Is that good? Or is that, if you pass that sweet point, it seems to me there really isn't a lot of use for many more. Only so many individuated units of consciousness optimize the system growing.
But how
and
can we
learning.
possibly know what that number is? And why would we discount the idea that if it's happening here, then it's beneficial and that we're on a path, that it can't be happening in infinite spots in the universe?
Well, because
simultaneously.
Because that takes infinite resources.
But doesn't the universe have infinite resources if it has hundreds of billions of galaxies, black holes bigger than our entire solar system, all this observed?
Right, that's all observed.
But are we looking at it on a limited number of data points? Are we looking at a limited number of possibilities?
No, that's not the point. The point is it's all virtual. It's all in the virtual.
So you're of the opinion that all these physical things are somehow or another virtual. Consciousness is the thing that creates all of this. We're going through a virtual experience through consciousness. We're an avatar of consciousness, but we're the only avatars of consciousness, and there's not avatars of consciousness that exist on other planets?
Well, there may be. I'm not saying that's not a possibility. I'm just saying if you look at the cost-to-benefit curve, any system that's a self-changing system is going to have a sweet point where scaling up anymore costs more than the benefit. And I see 9 billion people here, adding a couple of more who are struggling like the rest of humanity, trying to become love and acting very poorly, then I don't see that it's necessary. I see that maybe the cost-benefit curve says you don't need any more than that. If you scale, it becomes more work than it is benefit. You've got individuated units of consciousness all making choices, learning from those choices to become love. Okay, and that floats the whole, because as each choice is a good choice, then the entropy lowers a little bit, but because that consciousness is a part of the system, the whole system's entropy is lowered a little bit. So we're the larger conscious system's, one of its ways of lowering its own entropy is through us. So we lower entropy, it lowers the entropy of the system. And it has to compute a whole lot of stuff for 9 billion people. It's a big game. It's a big multiplayer game. Somewhere along the line, all systems like that have a curve where if you expand it anymore, the cost of expanding it is more expensive than the result that you get back, which is the rate of entropy reduction.
Right, but are we sure? Because you're adding things to this theory all the time.
I'm not sure of that. I'm not saying that is a truth. I'm just saying that is something to consider.
I understand what you're saying.
It could be that there are other civilizations on other planets, and that the system 9 billion is just a start. It doesn't. It can handle a lot more of that, and it
or
is.
maybe it's not more numbers even. Maybe it's just a different way of evolving. Maybe they've evolved with different problems and challenges.
Yes, that's true. But what I have found is that it's taken care of that, because that would be a real valuable thing to do. It's taken care of that with multiple virtual realities. Our virtual reality isn't the only virtual reality. I've been to probably a little more than a dozen different virtual realities. Actually, I've been to hundreds of the virtual realities. When you die, you end up in a virtual reality I call the transition reality. There's lots of virtual realities. When you dream, that's a virtual reality.
Right.
It's another virtual reality. But those don't have a tight rule set that defines every energetic exchange.
Right.
Ours does, and that's what makes ours look physical.
Well, it's one of the most bizarre things about being a person is that we do have this very unusual experience when we sleep.
Yeah.
Where we have these realities.
That's just another reality frame.
And in the moment, it is a reality.
Absolutely.
While you're in the heart of a dream, as absurd as that dream may be,
it's
in
real.
that moment, it's real.
It is no more or less real than this reality.
Than the conscious experience you feel in the waking life.
Exactly. It's just different. It's
So
a different
how
data
does-
stream,
How
different
does
reality.
aliens figure into this?
Okay.
And humans' experiences with
Okay.
aliens.
Right. So the way I see that is that I'm not saying it has to be that way. I don't know the carrying capacity of the system. I'm just saying that this is a possibility, that it has a possibility to be considered, and it solves the Fermi paradox. I would never say, oh, this is the truth, this is the way it is. I don't know.
I understand.
But it is something to consider, because it's a virtual reality, that you can get past, you get this curve where adding more IUOCs, individuated units of consciousness, costs more in the overhead of running the virtual reality than it actually builds the rate at which the system is lowering its entropy, is evolving. And if you get to that point, then the system doesn't want any more seats because it just costs more and you don't get much back for it. So that's a thing to deal with. Now, I don't know where that curve is, and I don't know whether we're there yet or not, but it's a possibility. So the alien thing. So that would say, if you look at that and you would say, well, 9 billion is probably enough seats. If. Now, that's just an if. If that's the case, then we're alone. We don't have that. Or maybe there's one or two other, but that's enough seats. Another 9 billion maybe be to capacity. So you get to that point, and then, let's see, where am I going with this? Then you say, well, what about all the experience people have with aliens? And, they interact with them. Where's all that coming from? They get pieces of ships. They get, people have seen things. I think all those people are telling the truth. I don't think those people are making it up. There may be a few that, people see all kinds of things. There may be a few of those that are a little psychotic, making stuff up. But for the most part, I think those people are telling you exactly what they saw and what they connected with. And, something lands in their yard and they find indentations and burn spots in the grass and all that. This is a virtual reality. Reality is just interpretation of a data stream. If the consciousness system would want to put an alien and a spacecraft in your front yard and burn some grass and leave indentations, it's trivial to do that. Okay? It can do that. I remember my son was in Age of Empires, and he had a cheat. And he put in the cheat, and he got a Mercedes-Benz with a nuclear. You're grinning. You've probably done it too.
No, I haven't played the game.
He got a Mercedes-Benz with a nuclear weapons launcher in it, and he could wipe out everybody else on the map just pushing a button. So cheats, it's a virtual reality. You can do stuff like that. Now, why would the system do that? Well, the system does a lot of things to help wake us up, to help us see a bigger picture, so we're not just stuck in this mindset of everything's random and nothing matters. This kind of bad ethic that we have. We just get stuck in that. So it does things to wake us up. Individuals, and you're probably one of them, maybe not, but you probably are. Many people have had paranormal experiences where they just knew something. In a dream, they saw something that happened, and it did happen. Precognitive, or they got a message from somebody. Oh, mom's looking for me. She's worried, and you call home and, oh, sure enough, she's worried about you. You get these things that are paranormal. And those things are given to you to help you see that reality is bigger than what you thought. It's got more to it. It opens your mind to see more possibilities, that kind of stuff. And it's just a mind opener. Just crack the mind open a little bit, that there's more to the way the world works than we thought.
Is it possible that aliens, if we're existing in a virtual reality, and if consciousness is working its way towards becoming better, and we're a part of a process, is it possible that there is consciousness that is more evolved and further down the line that coexists with us, and that's what we're experiencing? If we exist at the same time, at one point in time, Homo sapiens existed at the same time as Neanderthals and Denisovans and all these other human-type species that didn't make it. Is it possible that we're existing simultaneously with a more highly evolved version of us?
On other planets, or
right here?
Right here.
Interdimensionally, whatever. Why define it?
Yeah.
Whatever these people are experiencing when they're experiencing entities, when they're experiencing communication, telepathic communication with things that are very different from them. Is it possible that what these things are is consciousness evolved past where we are now, but also on a process?
Yeah, I would say, in a general way, I'd say yes to that. And I'd say yes to it maybe in a little different context than what you mean, I'm not sure. But I would say yes to that. There are people here who have bigger pictures, who connect with things that other people don't. Mostly they're the people who have developed their intuitive side. And I think that a lot of the UFO sightings, even the physical, the stuff that's very physical, that these are people who are supposed to be waking up the rest of us. They tell their stories. When they tell their stories of what they experienced, another million people who hear that starts to crack their mind open a little bit. So yes, there are people here who are more receptive, more able to communicate with them.
Thomas Campbell's theory stretches the limits of both physics and metaphysics. It's rooted in a blend of quantum mechanics, information theory, and Eastern philosophy. His idea that consciousness creates the physical universe echoes what's known as the simulation hypothesis, made famous by philosopher Nick Bostrom and later adopted by figures like Elon Musk. But Campbell goes further. He suggests that consciousness itself is the fundamental fabric of reality, that what we perceive as matter and energy are simply data streams interpreted by individual minds within a grand digital system. In this framework, the cosmos doesn't exist as a sprawling physical expanse. It's generated only when observed, much like how a video game only renders the landscape visible to the player. In quantum physics, this idea loosely parallels the observer effect, where the act of measurement appears to influence the behavior of particles. Yet, scientists caution that effect doesn't prove the universe is simulated, only that measurement interacts with the quantum system in measurable ways. Campbell's interpretation is poetic, but unverifiable. His argument that the universe limits players, meaning conscious beings, to prevent computational overload is speculative, not based on physical data. There's no evidence that a cost-benefit curve determines how many conscious entities exist in the cosmos. Still, his framework offers a striking answer to the Fermi paradox, the mystery of why we haven't found other intelligent civilizations. If reality is virtual, Campbell says, perhaps Earth is the only seat in this simulation. The system doesn't need trillions of civilizations. It only needs enough participants to evolve consciousness itself. Yet Joe Rogan pushes him further. What about the people who see aliens? The crafts, the encounters, the marks on the ground? Campbell doesn't dismiss them. Instead, he reframes them. In a virtual world, he says, those experiences are real to the observer because reality is data-dependent. If the system wants to awaken humanity, to shake us from our narrow materialism, it could manifest such phenomena at will. It's a chilling thought that UFO sightings, precognitive dreams, and paranormal events could be design prompts Not hoaxes, not hallucinations, but messages in the code. And whether or not Campbell's theory holds any measurable truth, it speaks to something deeply human, our relentless search for meaning in a world that may be both real and unreal at once. Perhaps his most provocative line is also his simplest. Greater than, reality is just interpretation of a data stream. If he's right, the universe might not be a cold machine after all, but a conscious story unfolding in real time, rendered only when we dare to look up.